Hi, I'm Chris Cravens. Today I'm up in the studio and I'm going to share a little bit more about what self-taught means to me and share some of my favorite resources, books, teachers' classes, specifically for enameling. Most of the time you're hanging out with me in the studio or either enameling or silversmithing. Today, we're going over to one of my favorite spots, the library. One of the questions that I get asked a lot by customers and people that are learning to make jewelry is, how did you learn all this stuff? So I am always amazed at that question. But then I really stopped to think about it, and it's like, if you're not familiar with something, figuring out where to start can be a little daunting. So in the world of jewelry, there's a couple of different paths that most people take. They may go to a trade school, specifically for jewelry. There's a few of them in the US. They might go to an accredited university that offers fine arts degrees with a specialization in metalworking. Or what most of us do, I think, is go down the route of being self-taught. I just want to take a minute to talk about that word, self-taught. For the first few years that I was enameling and doing silver work, I really struggled with calling myself a self-taught artist, because in my mind, I was like, no one just sits in a room and magically enamels or makes a bracelet. They always are learning from someone else. Self-taught in the world of art or anywhere is really just a simple expression to say that you didn't go the traditional route. You didn't go to a trade school. You didn't go to university. You made the decision to take classes, to watch videos, to read books, meet people, to do one-on-one instruction with you. And yes, you do sit in your studio and mess around with things and maybe screw some stuff up, but that's a whole nother ball game. So today I'm going to just talk a little bit about my experience, like my self-taught pathway, and some of the workshops, teachers, books, and things that have helped me along the way. So first off, I'm going to start with online classes and workshops. 2020 was an insane year for all of us for many reasons, but the beauty of 2020 is that a lot of artists and teachers, instructors who primarily taught face-to-face decided to invest in technology and learn how to teach online. So there are quite a few well-respected artists and teachers in the enameling space that have launched online workshops. I'm going to tell you about two that I had the pleasure of taking last year, and how they're good, how they're maybe a little challenging, and what I look for, or better yet, some ideas for when you're looking for online instruction, things that might work better for you. So the first example, first class that I took last year was by Mary Lee Ray. Mary Lee Ray is well known in the enameling world for her cloisonne jewelry and her use of leaded enamels, particularly opalescent enamels, and how she applies them. When you take a class with Mary Lee Ray, it's very project focused. So in a class, you're going to make this specific thing, following these specific steps, using these specific materials, and you will likely produce a result similar to what she intended for you to make. And along the way, you will learn how to enamel like Mary Lee Ray does, which is great, especially when you're getting started and you want to really understand the principles of how a specific artist works, or you feel like you need someone to walk you through every part of the process. It can also be a little frustrating if you're more free-spirited and like to dabble. I'll use that word, or experiment. That's better. Experiment is better. Test and learn, burn some stuff up, get some really cool results by accident. A class like that can be tough. So Mary Lee Ray, her workshops, they are pre-recorded videos, and then she has a Facebook group that you can join, talk with other students. Mary Lee is also in that group very often, so she's answering questions all the time, and she's very helpful. On the absolute flip side of that, the other class that I took in 2020 was Ricky Frank and his creative color class. As structured as Mary Lee's class is and project focus, Ricky Frank's is not. He has, for that specific class, creative color, many hours of pre-recorded content for techniques that you will learn in class. But the beauty of the class is the Zoom calls. So instead of a Facebook group, he hosts live Zoom calls with the students in the class. And this class sizes are limited. So it's not like you're sitting in a room with 40 people on a Zoom call. It's you and a handful of other people with Ricky Frank, like he's in the room with you. Those were pure gold in my mind. You could ask questions, he would explain things beyond what he did in the videos. But the best thing about the Zoom calls and that whole class was really learning not just how Ricky does enameling, but how to take a technique and transform it into your own style, how you want to do enameling. So his class is really more free form. It's like, here's some techniques. Now go and experiment and figure out how you'll use them. I'm still practicing from that class, and I have a feeling I will be for a while. So those are two examples of online training classes, and two fantastic instructors who have been absolutely wonderful. Ricky does take new students as well. It may just be a little bit more challenging if you are looking for specific step-by-step instruction. So I'm going to flip over now into in-person classes. And another thing you might want to consider when you're looking for a teacher. So my first class happened to be at the Carpenter Art Enamel Foundation with Tom Ellis. Tom is Thompson Enamel's technical advisor. He's worked there for many years. And so as far as unleaded enamel goes and their technical specifications and how to use them, how they're made, no one, I think, alive today would be able to teach you like Tom can. But during his class, something that really struck me now that I'm looking back, that was such a good thing as a beginner, was that we had projects that we worked on, but more importantly, with him in the room, as a student, you were also able to experiment a little bit. And he was there to help guide you along the way. And so it was great for me. And Tom and I feel like I could send him a note at any time or call him and he'd be like, yeah, hey Chris, how you doing? And so I just feel like it's a good way to get your feet wet and learn. Sorry, I'm just checking the time here. Learn about enameling is with an in-person class like that. Now, I am going to say there are a lot of people out there right now that are teaching enameling, especially torchfired enameling, that, how do I say this nicely, that you probably don't want to learn from. If you're getting ready to dip your toe in the water, make sure you ask the question, like, how long have they been enameling? What kind of things do they do with enameling? Do they do anything beyond the torch? Or if you are interested in torchfire enameling, do they do anything beyond the kiln? It really helps if you've got someone you're learning from that has tried some different things. They've learned from multiple people, and are really qualified to teach. I would just straight up beware if you go to sign up for an in-person class and you're in a room and there's 10 people and you're shoulder to shoulder with map gas torches like this and tripods stacked next to each other. Walk away. That is danger waiting to happen. Okay, enough said. That was my PSA safety announcement. So I talked about online classes, in-person classes, and now I want to talk about the third thing. Not really a class, but it is a fantastic resource. There's something called the Anomaly Society, and they are dedicated to the education and promotion of enameling as an art form. And 2020 was actually a really good thing for that organization because they started doing something that they've never done before. And on Tuesdays, they host live Zoom calls with leaders in the field who demo and talk about enameling. It's incredible. It's like you get to sit in a room with all of these people who have had many years of experience and learn from them, get tips and tricks from them. It's just great. So I will put a link to all of the resources in the Anomaly Society in the video description, so you can go check it out. That to me has been one of the best places to launch off of and try to find other teachers. The fourth thing I'm going to talk about is YouTube. So you found me out here. You'll find other great people. Sandra McEwen is a really good one to look for saw and solder, or she actually fuses, Champlavet. There are a lot of different torch-fired enamelers on YouTube. Same rule of thumb. Really look at what does this person really know? What is their background? How often do they work with the enamels? Is this their primary focus? How long have they been doing it? It's tricky. It's kind of a blend of art and science, and getting someone that knows about that stuff, even if they can't tell you all the technical details, but they understand things, will help you get set off down the right path. So enough said on that. Oh wait, now I'm going to flip over into books. So this one right here, this is a little magazine, very thin little magazine. This is called Glass on Metal. I mentioned the Carpenter Art Enamel Foundation earlier. For a period of time, they produced this quarterly publication. Actually, maybe it was bi-monthly. I don't remember. But in this, you will find all kinds of primers, information about enameling, experiments that people have done. It's a really great resource. And if you go to their website, they have some of these digitized, but you can also order back issues of them. I have a stack of them in my library, and these have been great. When I get stuck, sometimes I'll find things or something I never thought about, I'll find in here, and it's like, oh, that's really cool to try. So if you can get a hold of these are great. When you're just getting started, if you're getting ready to buy your first enameling book, get this one. And I'm just realizing that these are all backwards for you, I think. So I'll make sure that I say what they are, who wrote them, and put the links in there. Sorry about that. This one is by Linda Darty. Darty, and it's called The Art of Enameling. This book is the #1 book in my own library. I'm reaching for this all the time for reminders about how to do something or a special technique that I haven't tried before. This is where I usually go to get started with it. In this book, she covers all different kinds of enamel application and firing processes. And if you go and you work from start to finish, she's got little projects and examples. You will learn how to enamel. But if you're like me, learning straight from a book can be a little challenging. So taking this in conjunction with a work on either an online or an in-person workshop can really help. This book, like I said, is like a foundation in an enameler's library. It's almost like our little Bible for enameling. So get this one for sure. Another book that I have here is someone that I found from YouTube, Stephen James, and he specializes in torch-fired enameling. There are other torch enamel instructors out there. One of them is very well known. I just didn't really go down that route. I took a little bit of torch firing in Tom's class, and it was something that was kind of like, oh, that's fun, and I like it, and I'll do it for making samples and things like that. Most of the pieces that I make, I do in the kiln just because I like the results of them. But sometimes there are things that you can do with enamel that work better with the torch than with the kiln. Sorry about the phone. Hello. So this book right here, Stephen has some really fun things and fun processes that I wouldn't have found elsewhere for torch firing. So one of them, which I actually have been using, is salt firing. So this is a fun little book. If you want to go down the route of torch firing primarily, or if you're just looking for some fun things to try. On that subject of fun things to try, another book that I added to my library is this one. This is by a lady named Dorothy Cockrell, and it's called Beginner's Guide to Enameling. I actually just bought this last year, and I've been enameling for 5 years now, so I wouldn't qualify myself as a beginner, but this book intrigued me. It was written back in the 90s, and so there are some things in here that we don't really talk about so much today, but she's got some really neat things in here about using oxides. So like this piece right here, she's used oxides to break up enamels on top of other layers. And then something called hot scrolling, which is where you're using a metal implement to drag color through. She's got some other things in here that are interesting, fun, and easy things to do with enamel to set your pieces apart from everyone else. So good book by Dorothy Cockrell. And then the last book that I'm going to share is a really old one. This was published in the 70s. And this one is by Margaret Seeler, and it's called The Art of Enameling. If you want this book, you'll need to go to Thriftbooks or Abebooks, any used bookstore, and keep your eyes peeled. This book is phenomenal for more what I call the old school techniques. You will not hear people talk. Well, you'll hear Tom Ellis will talk about these things, but most people don't. She really spends a lot of time on champleve and grisaille enameling and doing things with cloisonne differently than modern instructors teach. So this book has been a great add to my library for alternative ways to go about doing things. So, all right, we talked about online workshops, in-person workshops, the Enamel Society, books. So YouTube too. I think I talked about that with the Anomaly Society a little bit. So I guess that's 5. So 5 ways, 5 tips, 5 ways to learn more about enameling. If you are getting started, I hope this has helped you. And if you've been doing this for a while, hopefully you've heard some great resources to go check out. If you have a recommendation, so an instructor you like, classes, or books, I would love to hear them. I've only been sharing things that I've had personal experience with. I will tell you this, that there is a school in the Carolinas called Picasso Arts, and they have really, again, with 2020 and all these things going online, they've really been bringing in some heavy hitters in the enameling space to teach classes, Zoom workshops. They're project based and they're quick, like 2-session workshops. So probably not great for a brand new beginner, but good for someone that might have a little bit of experience and wants to learn about a specific process or how a specific artist does something. So Picasso Arts. I've taken a couple classes, not enameling, from them last year, and they were great. How they're managed, how the sign up form, their website, everything's awesome. So can't recommend them enough, Picasso Arts. Anyway, if you've got some, share them below. Thank you, and I hope you have a beautiful day.